the S24. Switched from the S24 Ultra, and it's not that difficult. It's really not causing me a lot of pain points. There are things that I miss, but there are also things that I appreciate about the S24. I like the size. I like how nice it is to use one-handed. Big trade-offs here, of course, are the screen size. You go down to a much smaller screen. You have a smaller battery. You don't have the S Pen, and you don't have the more elaborate camera setup. But for most people, I don't recommend the Ultra. I recommend something like the S24 or the S24 Plus. And this one, of course, it's the cheapest version of all of them. It's $799. Base model still has 120 gigabytes of storage. It has 8 gigabytes of RAM. And it has the UFS 3.1 storage, which I don't really notice a whole lot of a difference there. Really, maybe it loads something a little bit slower. Maybe it installs something a little bit slower. But the trade-offs from having UFS 4 versus UFS 3.1, really not that big of a deal. It has slower charging. That's something I've definitely noticed. 25-watt charging instead of 45-watt charging. But it does have a smaller battery, so it doesn't take as long to charge on an equal basis whenever you look at them from a milliamp perspective. But some of the things that you really will appreciate. It still has a good point-and-shoot camera. Yes, I know a lot of people have hang-ups over the whole shutter delay stuff, shutter lag. When it comes with Samsung, we've been talking about it for years. It's something that we can talk about here. Of course, you can go in and turn off some of the AI processing features. It does speed it up a little bit. And, well, it does have older cameras. I mean, we're still basically rocking, I think, the same 50 megapixel camera for like the last 2 years. But what you get is a Snapdragon 8 Generation 3. The computational photography has stepped up a little bit, and I think it takes pretty good photos. Now, one-handed usage, I love. And it still seems to get all-day battery, so I don't have a lot of problems there. My problems in the past with the S22, S23, well, not so much the S23, but like the S21, S22, they had really poor battery life. I mean, I think I said the S22 had the worst battery life of a phone I've probably ever used, at least since the Pixel 4. This one seems to be getting me all-day battery. I've got it connected to the smartwatch. I'm using the OnePlus 2 smartwatch, which I am enjoying. I'll have my full review on that coming very soon. But a lot of people always think, I need the Ultra. I need the Ultra. I need the biggest one. I need the most expensive one. And maybe you don't. And it's funny because I said this about the S24 Plus. It looks just like an iPhone with the rounded corners and the flat edges and some of the color choices that they've gone with. But you can still clearly tell it's a Samsung phone because of the branding and the 3-camera stack on the back. And that's one big alternative you get if you take a look at, let's say, the Pixel 8. You get 2 cameras. If you look at the iPhone 15, you get 2 cameras. So I do appreciate that Samsung throws in the 3 times telephoto camera. Now, it's okay. It's not the greatest in the world when it comes to zoom, but it's better than not having one. And there's definitely a big trade-off between the 5 times or even the telephoto, the telescopic telephoto cameras. So if you really care about cameras, if you care about the 100 times zoom, if you care about reaching out and touching somebody, if you care about those intermediate portrait photos, you're going to miss out on that stuff, along with things like the S Pen. And when you do get into use the battery, it does drain, well, when you use the camera, it does drain the battery more quickly. So that's one of the benefits of having that big 5,000 milliamp battery. But I think there's a lot to be said for this phone. And if you can get it on sale, that's an even better deal, of course. But the Snapdragon 8 Generation 3 has been pretty stupendous in here. It's got the 2600 nits brightness screen. The screen is really beautiful. I've really enjoyed using the screen. And even when you go outside, you've got an auto brightness, it'll kick in. You can see really well. But it's beautiful, 1080p. You don't have the Quad HD Plus resolution, but you do get the 2 times AMOLED, 1080p, 120 hertz refresh rate. And just make sure if you buy one of these phones, though, when you go into the settings, make sure you turn on the adaptive refresh rate so you can enjoy that 120 hertz. That's something that kills me so much with these Samsung phones. They have 120 hertz, but by default, it's off. So I don't know if they do that so people think, they're getting better battery life, because if you are using 60 hertz versus 120 hertz, you do have a trade-off. There is better battery life. That constant higher refresh rate is something that does give you, well, more battery drain. But this one throttles all the way down, and you've got the full AMOLED display on here. So I really enjoy a lot of things about this phone. I've been using it with no case and no screen protector, which is very out of the norm for me. It just showed up. And I talked about this a while ago. Samsung emailed me and said T-Mobile wants to send you an S24 to review. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad T-Mobile does, not Samsung. So this is actually a phone that was sent out to me by T-Mobile through Samsung. I've been using it with T-Mobile. The 5G is excellent, and I've had no problem with the signal coverage whatsoever. Phone calls sound good. The speakers are still good. You've still got DeX. there's not a whole lot of trade-offs with this phone from a day-to-day usage perspective. You still got the latest and greatest One UI 6.1. You got the smart features. I'm even running Gemini on here with the Gemini AI app, which is what you can use on here. And you've got things like the circle to search. You've got the interpreter. You've got all those cool things. So that's one of the nice things about the S24. It's all-inclusive when it comes to the AI. It's not like the Pixel 8, where it's missing out on a lot of those smart features for the hardware limitations. It doesn't have Gemini Nano AI and all that stuff, but it does have a lot of smart features in here, and that's even a trade-off you don't get with the iPhone. I mean, I just made a video yesterday talking about how Apple's in talks with Google to license the Gemini AI stuff so they can get more AI stuff on their phones. So if you care about AI, if you care about other things like the 7 years of support, this is basically as good as it gets in the kind of smaller flagship tier category. And I still kind of put this in the flagship category. You've got the flagship chip, you've got the Snapdragon 8 Generation 3, you've got good cameras on here, it's robust, you get all the cool features that go along with that, and it does have improvements with the cameras year over year because of the computational photography employed and used with the smart features that are part of the chipset. So I have been using the S24 Ultra for quite a while since I got it. I've got a lot of experience with it. I've made a lot of videos with it. And just from a day-to-day perspective, I mean, I do appreciate it. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's more compact, it's easy to use one-handed. It still has facial recognition. You still get the ultrasonic fingerprint scanner, and those both work pretty darn well. So there's not a whole lot of trade-offs if you were looking at this from a day-to-day perspective. I mean, you don't get 12 gigs of RAM, you don't get the baseline 256 gigabytes of storage, but I think people looking for that are probably more inclined to spend the 200 extra bucks and get the S24 Plus, or if you want to go all out, you can get the Ultra. And I know people that have bought the Ultra and be like, you know, this thing's too bulky, it's too big, you can't use it one-handed, I don't really care about the S Pen, I don't care about the 200 megapixel camera, I don't want to pay the extra 500 bucks. That's a big gulf. I mean, $799 versus $1299. Of course, they have the trade-in deals with Samsung. I mean, you can get some pretty decent trade-in credit still there, and you can save some money that way if you're trading in an older phone. But as of right now, I think this is an excellent competitor to the iPhone 15. I think it's a really good competitor for the Pixel 8. I mean, it's $699 MSRP. They bumped the price tag up on it. This is $799. But the thing with the Pixel 8 is you can get it for significantly cheaper. It's been on sale. I think it's even $499 right now as the making of this video. And I've got a lot of hang-ups with that phone. But if you want kind of the full flagship level experience, all-day battery, good cameras, all three cameras, the ultra-wide, the regular, the telephoto, you want One UI, you want those smart features, you want 7 years of support, but you're happier with the smaller body style, you're happier. And the 1080p doesn't bother me that much. Like on a smaller screen like this, 1080p is perfectly fine. You're not going to notice any real difference between 1080p and the Quad HD Plus that you get with the S24 Plus and with the Ultra. And I had a lot of frustration before. Like the S23 Plus, it was 1080p. With the 6.6-inch screen, you need to have Quad HD Plus. You can notice it a little bit more. You get more crisp-looking photos, you get more crisp-looking video, things look sharper, and that's really just not a trade-off you have to worry about when it comes to a smaller screen because the pixel density is smaller for that resolution. So, my thoughts on it so far, I'll have my full review coming out. I've got a lot of camera samples. I went to the zoo, I took some photos, and they turned out really good. But you're going to notice those limitations if you're coming from a more built-out phone like the S23 Ultra or like the OnePlus 11, OnePlus 12, iPhone Pro series, because you have a better telephoto, you can reach out and touch things more, you get more robust camera setup and things like that. So if that's what you really want, you probably don't want the S24. But if you want something that has a good selfie, that takes good photos, it's solid for video, and it has a really good setup on the back already, well, I think this is a very, very well-rounded phone. I think there's a lot to like here. I like the smaller one-handedness. The haptics are still good. Still a very enjoyable typing experience. If you buy one, make sure you set up and install Gboard. The Samsung default keyboard I absolutely hate. Maybe some of you guys and gals like it. It's not for me. But using this, switching from my S24 Ultra, I've got my primary SIM card in here. I've been using this the whole week ever since I got it. And there's been a lot of refreshing things. I mean, there are things I don't like about the Ultra. I don't like that it's so big. A lot of you, if you've watched my videos in the past, you know that I like the smaller, thinner form factor flagship phones. I love the Sony Xperia 1 Mark V. I love the 21:9 aspect ratio. I love how thin and narrow it is. So this is a nice trade-off for that, but you're just missing out on things like the camera and the S Pen. But you're not missing out on the extra $500 price tag. So after a week, switching over and using this full-time as my daily driver, yeah, it's been a really nice experience, and it's not been a lot of those trade-offs because there's a lot of significant improvements here that we didn't have with the S23. So I do appreciate that. The 7 years of support, 7 years of operating system updates, 7 years of security patches. I think it has some meaning with it, especially the way Samsung's done a really good job of supporting their phones. Quick updates, Johnny on the spot. They've been even better than Google the last couple of years with putting out their updates and their support. So that's my thoughts on it so far. But if you're looking and you're trying to decide, do I want an S24 Ultra, do I want an S24, this maybe might give you some food for thought from a daily driver perspective. And my thoughts on it as coming from the bigger phone, using the smaller phone now. I'll still be using this probably another week, so I'm going to wrap up and do my full review then. And like I said, I got a lot of photo samples. I took a lot of photos at the zoo, and I was impressed with it. And of course, it's got nice, beautiful screen. You can go in and adjust the saturation. You can change things with the vividness. You've got the vividness slider in there, just like with the S24 Ultra. Same level of screen quality from this one. So that's all I got in this video. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. But if you're curious, if you got some thoughts, you got questions, go to the comment section. We can discuss it there. If you enjoyed the video, if you like the Samsung content, you're in the right place. I cover it quite frequently. Hit the like and the subscribe button and the little notification bell if you want updates when new videos come out. And as always, thanks for being here. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you guys next time.